Good evening. My name is Katie McKee, and I'm an English and Southern Studies professor here at the University of Mississippi and the director of the UM Center for the Study of Southern Culture. Welcome to Oxford, to our campus, and to the 32nd Oxford Conference for the Book. Tonight, we are all the beneficiaries of the hard work of the team that plans this gathering. OCB Director James G. Thomas Jr., OCB Assistant Director Rebecca Locke Cleary, and Graduate Assistant Astrid Knox Connell, along with the broader staff of the Center for the Study of Southern Culture, Andrew Bryant, Bert Neal, Afton Thomas, and the graduate students and undergraduate students, the staff and the faculty who make the center every day a lively and fulfilling place to work. In order to get you all to the author's party on time tonight, there will not be a question and answer period following tonight's lecture, but the author will be available to sign and sell books in the lobby afterward with a special price for student readers in the audience. My task tonight is to set the stage for the 6th Anne J. Abity Lecture in Southern Studies. Anne Abity, longtime Associate Director of the Center for the Study of Southern Culture, quite literally invented the Oxford Conference for the Book in collaboration with Square Books, a town and gown joint venture that acts as a testimony to the power of literature and the investment in reading that distinguishes Oxford and pays tribute to its long-standing relationship with the written word. This lecture began to honor Anne's contributions. Now it honors her legacy. But the truth is that no Oxford Conference for the Book will ever really be without Anne, whose vision first called this event into being and whose imprint is on it still. We are fortunate to have with us tonight some members of her family who are sitting here in the middle section. And Dale, you know, she always sat over here. So I don't know, I guess you worked, I guess it's okay that you're in that spot. We are very glad to have you all here tonight. For a time, the Abity Lecture was connected to the Faulkner and Yoknapatawpha Conference on hiatus this year as we search for a new Howry Chair of Faulkner Studies. If you're a regular attendee of that event, you'll remember that a series of powerful voices have occupied this slot in the program. The poet Natasha Trethewey, the novelist Percival Everett, the performance artist E. Patrick Johnson, the author Ron Rash, and last year, the photographer Sally Mann. Tonight's Abity Lecture is no less distinguished. Janisse Ray is the author of 8 books, including Wild Card Quilt, The Seed Underground, Drifting into Darien, and Wild Spectacle, all united by a persistent interest in the natural world that certainly means we speak of her most often as a writer of and about the environment. Those concerns extend to her work as a novelist, a poet, and a writing guide, turning her considerable talent to helping other people nurture theirs. More than a writer, Janisse is a celebrated writer, having won an American Book Award, a Pushcart Prize, a Southern Bookseller Award, and a Southern Environmental Law Center Writing Award, among many others. She earned an MFA from the University of Montana, and she's been inducted into the Georgia Writers Hall of Fame. Moreover, she's no stranger to Oxford, having served over 20 years ago now as the Grisham Writer in Residence. She doesn't really need any words from me. And yet, I have a few that begin with apologies to UB Phillips with the weather. Unless you've been in outer space or in Oxford for fewer than 20 minutes, you know that we experienced a once in 30 years ice storm here in January, the long tail of which wraps around us still as we continue recovering our fence lines and fixing our roofs and wondering what our yards will be like without the trees that had stood in them for decades. Most people were without power for many days. The semester already begun, later restarted, seemed like a dream of normalcy. At night, beside my wood-burning fireplace and beneath all of the blankets in my house, I tried to read. We've returned in Southern Studies 101 this spring to a text we used regularly some years ago, Janisse Ray's now classic environmental memoir, Ecology of a Cracker Childhood. Bundled up by the fire and in full submission to nature's power, I opened the book back up for the first time in over a decade and found myself reminded of Janisse's incredible power to weave together the human story and the natural one. In short, the book stands up to the test of time. If anything, it was a better read this time through than any other, a real testimony to the enduring power of literature to help readers make sense of their worlds. I didn't grow up in a junkyard, but I did grow up on a farm, acutely aware of nature's power to wreck your plans, a lesson that had come home to me again. But in ecology of a cracker childhood, I met again the certain knowledge that the destruction flows both ways. We stand to account for a landscape altered by human intervention. In her new book, Journey in Place, A Field Guide to Belonging, Janisse returns to what she calls a knotted ball of yarn I have spent years attempting to untangle, the relationship of people to the places they inhabit. We are meant to experience living in a human body within a landscape, she writes, asking, why not bring a global environmental ethic down to the specific and personal? That's precisely what she shows us how to do in Journey in Place, where she charts through a series of explorations, no less a monumental switching point than the intersection of the human heart with the natural world. Please join me in welcoming Janisse Ray.
World, and that the world creates all of us for a reason. I believe we are deeply attached to the earth and to each other. I believe this connection is an essential part of being human. I believe the earth needs us as we need her, and that destruction of the earth destroys us. I believe we've lost too much of the beauty of life. Too many of us feel isolated, powerless, lonely, divided. Too many of us have given up, become careful, become invisible. We get small when it's actually time to get big. I believe we're being asked to realign with the earth. I believe in our greatness, our power, our voice, our ability to make the world a better place in ways global and neighborly, in circles large and small. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. Hello, hello. Welcome to another Oxford Conference for the Book, the 32nd. Thanks to the center. Let me get going here. Uh-oh. Hold on. It's going to work. To the Center for the Study of Southern Culture for inviting me to honor the late Ann Abity, a quiet force who for many years did the hard work of canonizing and coming to terms with the complicated and tragic, yet brilliant cultures of the South. This lecture is dedicated to Ann, my old friend, and also to the memory of William Faulkner, place writer, and his unbelievable mind. I especially thank you students for being here. I'm deeply grateful for a chance to meet you and tell you what I think and feel, because the world needs your clear thinking. It needs your love. I'm talking today about place and imagination, that explosive arena where the two intersect, and why this crossroads can mean so much in our lives. I invite you on a journey in place. Place is not a setting in a story. Setting is a piece of cardboard, a backdrop painted for a play. I'm talking to you about a living, breathing, greening, swooning, ever-changing relationship with a space, a piece of ground, a region, a landscape. No good word for this exists. Every single word for place has been flattened out by our need to dump on them, extract from them, twist and meld them to our desires, reshape them, ignore them. Your environs, your environment, your surroundings, The scene, our brains process in symbols. Use the mic. Okay, no, you're good. Is this better? Okay, got it on. Our brains process in symbols. Words themselves are symbols. The word place is a symbol of a place. And when I think of place, I think of this: a dot on a map. A person is symbolized by a stick figure, and a place is symbolized by a dot. When we locate ourselves on the face of the earth, we use maps, and maps use these. A small circle is a small place, a large dot, a large place. Strange that places would become pools of ink to us. This man changed that for me. Stephen Herod Buhner was a natural philosopher and a plant genius who started a grassroots think tank called the Foundation for Gaian Studies. For 30 years, he named himself its senior researcher. When he left home at 16, Stephen wrote, he took 3 questions. Who and what am I? What are human beings? What is this place I have been born into? I did not have the words then to describe the meaning I sensed and forced into that inadequate word, place. It took me years to find words to describe what I intuitively understood. Specifically, what is the nature of this scenario from which all of us have emerged, and in which we are inextricably embedded? There you have it. The word place is inadequate. Let's look at the problem in terms of these 2 words, situation and scenario. Situation is a place, locality, a site. The situation of the house allowed for a beautiful view. Scenario, a sequence or development of events. Buckminster Fuller, a systems theorist, once said, it's possible to get out of a place, and by that he meant a site. It's not possible to get out of a scenario. So you see the problem. We've been trained to think of our places as backdrops or as dots, when actually they are dynamic sequences of events that include us. The dot has 2 dimensions. We add relief for the 3rd dimension, but a place has many dimensions, entire kingdoms interacting. Animals with fungi, plants with bacteria, protists with animals, and untold numbers of species within those kingdoms interacting. Now we've entered the expanding mathematical world of exponential combinations. If you are ignorant of the scenario taking place around you, if you've brought your own agenda into this place, adding it to the agenda of the person who is here before you, then you too have created or accepted a backdrop for your life. You have not entered a life with your life, thus creating an exponentially powerful thing, you in relationship to everything else in the world. Your neighbors, the soil, the air, the water bodies, the wild animals, the herbs, the trees, the bacteria. The second common mistake we make, especially as writers, and a lot of us are writers here, being the book conference, half a century or more ago, writing theorists began to beat about this idea that place is a character. And I want to quote you, Morgan, a quote from Morgan Thomas. Place is not a character. It's that eddy up a branch of the Mississippi that swallowed my great-granddaddy's Piro. This is place, sentient, determining, the ecology with which other beings in our stories co-create their lives. Place is every ingredient that ever was, combined in a trillion different ways to make a complicated, fantastical, mysterium, layer upon layer upon layer of life itself. There is no metaphor for it. Nothing is as complicated and fantastical and mysterious. It can't be compared to a machine, not to any household, not to any human relationship. It is not a soup. It is not a swamp. It is the ethereal, primordial, cosmic scenario out of which we all emerged, dripping and bawling. It is a privilege, and yet we treat it as if it's cardboard, as if it's a few sentences of sensuality. The Carolina jessamine was blooming. I'm a nature writer. When I began writing in the 90s, no literature defined what I was doing. A few people were doing it. Anne Fisher-Worth, your professor emerita, was one of the pioneers, one of the people who helped create this nature writing movement. To quit looking at the line of trees as a setting and to start looking at them as a chain of events from which we all emerge and play and love and chase and lose and win and hope. I come from this place, a junkyard in the south of Georgia. I write about it in my book, Ecology of a Cracker Childhood. One essential event or presence can save a child, I wrote in that book, can flower in her and claim her for its own. The French novelist Albert Camus said, "A man's work is nothing but this slow trek to rediscover through the detours of art those two or three great and simple images in whose presence his heart first opened." For me, growing up among piles of scrap iron and glittering landmines of broken glass, among hordes of rubber tires that streaked my legs black, among pokeweed and locust, I attribute the opening of my heart to one clump of pitcher plants that still survives on the backside of my father's junkyard. I understood, this, by the way, is, I think it's, okay, I can't remember where it is. Possibly it's Apalachicola, but that's what the junkyard would have looked like. I want to read you a little piece. On a trip one summer, when I was a girl, I came to understand that I was growing up in a distinctive, bizarre, and mysterious place. That trip was my first time away from the American South and the farthest I'd ever traveled away from home. My dad was a tall, handsome man who had the same broad forehead and black hair as Elvis. My mother had been a dark-haired beauty, and now she wore shin-length, dark-colored polyester dresses she sewed herself. She kept her hair pinned up and covered with cloth hats to match the dress. My sister and I wore similar long sleeves and skirts over our knees. One glance at our attire and you knew we belonged to a cult of some kind. I watched the landscape change as we rode toward Philadelphia. I was almost a teenager, and this was new territory. Philadelphia was not the first city I'd ever seen. I'd been to Savannah and to Macon, but it was the largest. I could not stop studying it. Narrow houses were packed tightly together, touching, no space between. For a yard, folks had, if they were lucky, a tiny square of grass. People parked their cars in the street. Children played in fire hydrants that spewed water onto sidewalks. We had left behind the junkyard where we lived, where my father made his living. The junkyard had been built in a lowland, once a slash pine forest. I had found a pitcher plant there, and I'd never seen anything like it. My science teacher filled me in on the curiosities of this strange botanical, telling me it ate insects and showing me their undigested wings and husks. Even amid junked cars, limited by the muting effect of fundamentalism, I had been permanently awakened to the magic of nature. I was deeply embedded in that place. Both parents born there, as had all my grandparents. Their parents and their parents had been born there, all the way back to the year the U.S. forced a quitclaim deed on the Creek Indians, turning them from their hunting grounds and welcoming white settlers. One afternoon, in a Philadelphia grocery, some children surrounded us. We did not know what they wanted, and we, my siblings and I, drew closer together. Finally, one of the city children spoke. "Say something," she said. So that was it. We spoke differently. They had overheard enough to believe we had strange accents in the same way we had been processing their speech. "What do you want us to say?" my brother asked. "Anything," another child said. They looked expectant. "You say something," my brother said, and walked away. If I had been draped in Spanish moss, like any old gnarled live oak, the juice of dead insects leaking from my tennis shoes, smelling like a stinkhorn mushroom, I wouldn't have felt more weird, more out of place. That was how, in Philadelphia, I came to understand that I was growing up in a different land. I want to show you my place now. It's a 46-acre farm in the south of Georgia. And let's go back the other way. So this is the Altamaha River. It starts at this confluence of the Ocmulgee and the Oconee. And you can barely see it, but a fourth river comes in here called the Ohoopee. And I live in the delta about 2 miles from each of the Altamaha, which comes out at Little St. Simon's Island in the Golden Isles of Georgia, and about 2 miles from the Ohoopee. So that's the farm. This is the confluence of the Ohoopee. The Ohoopee is coming in here into the Altamaha. And my son Silas took this photo with a drone. And then the same day, this is the picture of the farm. It looks much more elegant than it is. It's an 1850 farmhouse. This is the kitchen, and it's separated by, this is out in the open. So if you're sleeping over here and you want a cup of tea, you have to go outside to go into the kitchen. And then you can see gardens and horses and cows. When I knew that, when I knew that I wanted to write about nature, to tell the stories of wildness, nature writing was actually called a marginal literature. It was marginal like gay lit or Chicano lit, native lit. It was marginal because it was really hippie lit, and hippies were marginal. Ann Fisher-Worth and I met at a gathering of Southern nature writers in the late 90s, 30 years ago. There were about 15 of us total at that point. We were on a barrier island off the coast of Georgia, Ossabaw, trying to hash out why something so important was called a marginal literature. Why is nature at the margin? Why do we keep relegating it to the margin? And why do we push the margin farther and farther away from us? The nature writer Jan DeBlue was at the gathering. She said, nature writing is not marginal. We are writing the human story now. We are writing the human story. This is the most important literature being written. Sorry to everybody else. Why? Because if we don't get this story right, we lose everything. We lose life on Earth. We don't lose the planet. It'll still be a big chunk of carbon and oxygen and hydrogen, but it could be barren. uninhabitable as a parking lot, illogical as an oil spill. If we don't get this story right, we lose the scenario. We lose our places. We lose ourselves. Is this a dystopian talk? It is, because the utopia is gone. Maybe it never was. Certainly for some people, in most areas of their lives, the utopia never happened. And maybe that dichotomy is unnecessary. Either we have a dystopia or a utopia. Can we have simply a midtopia where we're not in ecstasy and not in despair, but a level-headed, justifiable, nonviolent relationship with everything? That everything we do puts that question first. Is this thing good for all of us? What I'm here to talk about to you today is this, the human story, what it means for us, every one of us, to have been expressed out of this scenario of a big woods landscape or a coastal one or a tundra one or a desert one, wherever you came from, even a big city one or a small town one. About 30 years ago, right about the time that the internet first became a household word, when email arrived into our lives, a huge movement began to make us global creatures. That was globalization, the mantra, think global. Why did capitalism and industrialism need us to think global? In the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s, capitalism lured us off the farms to the big cities. They needed us to nominally rebuild and build our country, but actually to feed this growing thing called capitalism. In the 80s and 90s, capitalism was trying to create a global marketplace. It was trying to open markets beyond the US and sell everyone in the world a computer, a cell phone, the way we already sold them infant formula, toilet paper, Coca-Cola, and the good things, reading glasses, blood pressure medicine, and capitalism succeeded. But they could only succeed if we gave up our adoration for and commitment to local places. They could only succeed if they brought us inside, not outside. They could only succeed if they broke our bonds with trees, with wild animals, with mountains, with rivers. They could only succeed if they ripped away our mythological stories of a life lived on earth and replaced them with Marvel's mythologies. Place is not an abstraction. The planet is the abstraction. Place is right here. In little more than 100 years, we've become placeless people. And placeless people are homeless people. We live in places, we visit them, we travel between them, but our ties are financial, familial, medical. Sometimes we stay in a place because we find ourselves there. I say this without judgment. We have been asked to ignore place in order to get by. Capitalism demands a workforce. We mostly don't know when there's a frost, what a certain arrangement of clouds mean, how the wild animals and plants interact, what's native or not native, what can feed us, what can heal us. And yet we are biological creatures, absolutely dependent on the earth for survival, every minute of every hour of every day. Thousands of generations of folks who came before us never knew cell phones, global positioning systems, computer apps. For millennia, we humans evolved in relationship with places and the elements of those places. We knew the cycles of the turning sky, the moon, the weather, the tides, the seasons, the migrations. We belong to places in a way we'll never be able to belong again. Not for a very long time. So let me go through, I'm toward the end here, and this is kind of the how-to part. Place is important, and I've got 3 ways. It's important in the construction of our bodies. We're literally made of places. Not just the water in our veins and the minerals in our bones, but the way the sun hits Oxford, it transforms the fat in our bodies to vitamins. In so many ways, we are literally places. It's important in the construction of our psyches. This goes back to a John Locke's thought experiment in the 17th century, in which he asks, what really makes you who you are? If I gave you my body and I took yours, would you be you? What if I gave you let me just skip forward. If my memories get put in your head and yours in mine, and you remember having my son Silas, etc., then you become me. I become you. Places, memories are spatial, always. When somebody dies, it's a spatial grief, because the person is gone from the place you knew them at, right? Memories, so just, you can think about this on your walk later this evening. Memories are always place-based. So our psyches are place-based. And that's not my theory, that comes from the philosopher Kathleen Dean Moore. And place is important in the construction of cultures. Culture is a set of stories that we tell ourselves about how to survive in a landscape. What a relationship with place can offer, this sense of belonging. Lopez, the late, great Barry. The key, I think, is to become vulnerable. If you open up, you can build intimacy, and out of that intimacy may come a sense of belonging, of not being isolated in the universe. And then Robin, is land merely a source of belongings, or is it the source of our most profound sense of belonging? Intimacy, like Barry said, grounding, meaning, a relationship with place, another quote by Barry, protects you from spiritual collapse. The length of time you spend in a place gives you authority there. And healing. So let me just read one more paragraph and we'll go through the very last part. I was at one fall after the pandemic, I was speaking at Berry College in Georgia when a young person in the front row raised their hand and asked a question I'd never been asked. How do you learn to be in place? I didn't know how to even begin to answer this question. I stumbled my way through an answer, and the question echoed as I left the auditorium and later the campus. The student had been shown daily that places don't matter. Places are destroyed. Places become homogeneous. Our culture is focused on built environments, technology, social interactions. Yet I had spoken about relationship to place. I'd said that as humans, we're made of places. We are meant to experience living in a human body within a landscape. The student sensed she was missing something. She felt homeless. What would a place-based life look like? So for the next year, I worked on answering her question. It's this book, Journey in Place. 7 ways. These are very mild. The book is full of more, like get going on your bird list, get going on your what wild plants are edible where you live. What phase is the moon in right now? So the book goes deeper into the colors of your place, the sound of your place, what some people believe you can hear. Some Native people believe you can hear the stars singing. Have you ever been so connected with your place that you hear the stars singing? You hear the music of the universe itself. So Barry says, put aside the books, analysis, and just pay attention. Be silent, pay attention. By the way, Jamie, Katie, and I talked, and we made a place challenge, find your place challenge. These are questions we all deal with here. Where do I belong? Do I feel at home here? Where do I feel at home? How can I get to the place where I feel at home? These are universal. I don't think we talk about them enough. The place challenge is on a bookmark for free right outside on the door. So grab yourself one. This darn thing is going backwards again. Feel the place. Buhner, this is an enormously beautiful book, Ensoling Language. He talks about, so last night we got here too late to hear Amy, and we were starving, so we went to Ajax. And so what happens when you go into a place you haven't been in or a place you've never been in, you go to the door and you open it, and you send out these invisible feelers. You don't step inside right away. You feel how it feels. And then you begin to think, well, it feels cozy in here, it feels welcoming. And then you ask, where should I sit? Where do I go? Which table is for me? You walk around a minute figuring out where you're going. This becomes really important when it's, how does the doctor feel? How does the medicine feel? How does this hospital feel? How does this surgeon feel? These are Raven's paintings, by the way. Then you begin to explore it. For time's sake, I won't go too deeply in here. This is a beautiful painting of the road leading to Moody Forest, which is a piece of land that got saved in my home county. It's now 4,500 acres along the Altamaha. Then you study. You embark on these journeys of study, of history, culture, natural history. Learn the names of things. I was actually with Robin Kimmerer and a couple of other nature writers at a metaphor gathering in Oregon many years ago. We were looking for metaphors of restoration. You know, the landscape that I come from has to burn, but if a nurse in a burn unit, when she hears about there's prescribed burning going on, it's sickening, right? So what metaphors can we as writers use that changes the dominant narratives? And the one that we came up with is that commitment to a place is like marriage. It's like a commitment to a person. And that's what this one entails. And then I believe that the next step would be to express your love for it. However, in your fishing, in your environmental activism, in your art, in your writing, it doesn't really matter as long as it's not destructive. This is an advanced form, and it's to re-story your place. To restore, you also have to bring back the stories of our human relationship to nature. And I won't go into this. I have very strange views on play. I think our ancestors still walk among us. I think places can heal you. I think ancestors are watching, places are watching. The old idea of, a fairy tale land, an enchanted land, comes from this word enchantment, which if you break apart means to sing upon. Can you sing upon your land and re-enchant it? Can you begin to re-mythologize the parts of nature around you? If I do nothing else with this lecture, and Jimmy, I had a number of conversations with Jimmy today, including one where I cried, which was just like, Jimmy, it's too esoteric. What do they carry home from it, right? I want so badly for the world to be different for all of us. I don't want us to be this deep into the climate crisis, right? So that would be the thing to take home, is your land is watching you. Your land sees you. Why don't you turn and see it? Katie mentioned a couple of these. This is, I think after you do enough work, you will have that deep sense of place. And y'all know, if you've read my work, I don't believe in just the 5 senses of the body. Thank God we have them. And not just the 6th sense of intuition. I think we have dozens and dozens and dozens of other senses. A sense of responsibility, a sense of time, a sense of being watched, a sense of danger. They literally go on and on and on. And we also have this sense of place. And let me see where I was. We're almost there, so y'all hang in. I think we're good. Thanks to the Oxford Conference for the book, Center for the Study of Southern Culture, the university. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Katie. I want to end with one last piece here. Thank you. A lot of the beautiful, those really beautiful photos come from a young woman at Quantum Flow Photography. She's a friend of my son's, Shan Hartford, and she gave me just joyful permission to use them. And I thank Shan and I thank Raven for his art. And mostly I thank you for being here. And then don't forget to pick up your place challenge. This is where to find me. I have a free weekly newsletter called Trackless Wild through Substack. And there's my website, and here's my email. Or Jimmy or Katie could give you my cell phone number. And I want all of us to have a beautiful, wonderful conference. So what have I said in this talk, and what have I meant to say? That place is not cardboard. It's not a dot. It's not a character. It is a divine scenario, one we don't understand, but one to which we belong anyway. That we keep being asked not to give up place, not to give up on place, and not to have our places give up on us. That place can save us, that a person living a life grounded in place seems always A person living a life not grounded in place seems always to be searching for something. My hope is that you singly and all of us collectively cultivate a sense of place and a reverence so profound that it protects our beloved earth, its spectacular ecological richness, dramatic, sensuous beauty, interesting cultures, extraordinary histories. My hope as well is that we have reconciled some of our personal ambivalence and feelings of disconnection, and that we move forward knowing our places better and being better known by them. Welcome home.